the next thing you want to do here, which we already kind of cover, we went from build a complete picture of your company, and it's a lot of the context. And as we go through the steps here, a lot of them are, mapped against different parts of this ontology, this context ontology here. But what you want to do next is identify every buying category that your brand competes in, right? And some of this is, think of a lot of your processes. What I found that works really well in steering agents and AI is start broad with and then give a criteria for how you want an agent to think through narrowing down this kind of like broader set, right? And so in this case here, a lot of what we do in mapping your buying categories is really starting broad and trying to find every category in G2 or analyst firms and really kind of how companies and your competitors really kind of frame the categories as well. And so you have AI can come up with a bunch of candidates that then you can really start to narrow in. And really depends on your where you're playing in, depending, Gartner might not even be relevant for you, but, so there's different types of analyst firms. Some of the processes we've done also is to map every single analyst firm that is legit, every site out there that's kind of like a review site or authoritative. And there's a lot of data sets that you can plug into that have already a ton here. And so, So now what you're trying to do is trying to then investigate the taxonomy that trusted sources or reputable or official sources like analysts start to define your category under, and then start to validate it against kind of community language, and then classify and prioritize and start to define the relationship between these different things, right? Like what are the core categories? What are our adjacent pieces of it? And what are things that you should probably monitor, and what's emerging versus what's super mature, and then this all gets translated into an ecosystem map, right? And inside, this is a version for Vercel, for example, where this is kind of part of how we mapped out their product portfolio and catalog across these kind of categories. And then there's 3 to 9 segments or product sets inside of each one of these categories. And then they get translated into something that kind of looks like this, which is your competitive landscape, right? And then for each one of these, you can start to do then the briefs. And so you can see the language is not overcomplicated. It makes sense. It's kind of how it's defined here. And then the next part here is really building the full list of players and starting to score them in tiers. And the reason we want to do that is, unless there's a head-to-head competitor that's really causing you a lot of pain, you want to make sure you put the appropriate weight and understand what's a really well-established player versus someone that's very niche or some that are almost like completely off the map. And one of the things where we're going to use this later on is the mistake that I think a lot of people make in AEO and how they're measuring AI visibility is that every vendor is created the same. And so an easy way to think about this is TurboTax, right? It doesn't matter if search is off, it doesn't matter how much content you're going to do. For anything that's relevant to tax, most likely TurboTax is going to be recommended at some point or mentioned at some point because it's so biased. There's such a dominant presence within the space that really, if you don't have that, if you don't actually have the understanding of how big this company is or how present this company already is, and also understanding their SEO presence and their search and how prominent their brand is, then and classify it against like leader, established, emerging, and off map, then as you start to try to figure out how to influence how AI thinks about you and how buyers think about you, then you might be treating every player the same, right? But this is also where the altitude and the scope of how you define your segments is going to make a big difference. Because if you're trying to be, TurboTax, that's going to be a long game. That's not going to be a 3 months game, right? And whereas if you define your segments a little bit more narrowly scoped, then you can actually win. You can actually make an impact on a meaningful subset of that broader market, okay? And so, so then what we're doing is creating a detailed brief on every single player. And I talked about this already, so we're not going to go too much into details. But this is where like you got to invest the time here. Every hour you're investing here in doing this is an hour that you're probably not going to have to do around fixing an issue later on, or measuring the wrong thing, or coming up with the wrong strategy. So this is where I would invest the majority of your time here. And then what's really cool is that this is an example in the email marketing space. What you can start to do is then, now that you have all this context, which is your product, the market, what are the things buyers care about in that market, what you can start to do is then map out features and look at where your gaps are for every single competitor in those different segments that you mapped. And this is really, really useful, because this is what you're going to need to use later on to know how you're influencing that, right? And how you're changing that perception in the market. And then how that perception of the market, whether that perception is true or not true, is impacting the overall sentiment or the overall way that AI recommends or doesn't recommend you for certain use cases. And this is all, you can see very much from first principles. All these building blocks are all going to connect later. And this is where I talked about sizing the search visibility, AI and search visibility for these websites. And the reason for that is like your SEO and how like your search visibility overall is highly correlated to your presence. There's other things you can use like market cap, if they're a public company, funding, any publicly available information, number of reviews on sites and things like that, analyst coverage. But then how much traffic they get, how much branded traffic they get is a great way to look at how they're doing, but also looking at overall their surface area on their site, how many keywords they're ranking for, how many pages they have, how much traffic those pages are getting. It's really important. We don't believe in that SEO is completely disconnected from everything else we're doing here. Okay, awesome. And this is what it looks like in the platform. Later on, I can show like more examples, or having every single thing in one place, and so that it can be pulled in any execution and used as context as well. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do is then connect all these things also to do an initial baseline in AI visibility. And there's a whole section here we're going to talk about AI visibility, but what we're trying to do here is almost creating our own version, your own custom version of a magic quadrant, which is like the overall market presence versus AI visibility, and kind of see where you are in the space. I find that this is way more useful than just having this kind of like line graph of how many times you were recommended to start with, because you're trying to kind of see a snapshot. And we really think of measuring AI visibility as more of a brand survey muscle, as opposed to an analytics muscle, because an analytics muscle assumes you're measuring something that's factual, whereas this is more your probing engine in a service. And what you get back is not actual data, because it doesn't have the full context of an actual customer and what they're getting back, because these models are non-deterministic. And so it's more like a survey. And so think about this, our mental model for AI visibility, a lot of it is survey mentality, how we do brand survey, how you know if there's a brand lift after you do a campaign or something. And so it's very similar methodology, which we'll get into. But then this makes it super easy for you to see like how much gap there is between you and the rest of your competitive set, right? And then never reporting on anything here on a single day basis, right? Like you want to look at a range. There is a minimum and there's a max. There is a trailing average, and you have, it's kind of like a stock, right? Like you're not just looking at today's number. You're really looking at kind of a range and an average, and you're trying to see if this thing is moving over time. So it's a great way to at least establish that baseline that you can come back to. Okay. So now we're going to go a little bit deeper into